I just hope it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back.
It's been a while. It's been too long since we've last filmed. Starting to finally get caught up. But yes, welcome to episode 5. 2 idiot Americans taking over the world.
Yes.
Have a really fun episode for you guys today.
Yes. So we're talking about our trip in Indonesia.
Indonesia, that was the next leg of our trip. And by the way, it should be noted, we are not currently in Indonesia filming this. We are someplace entirely else. We are a continent away.
Yes.
So we're not in Indonesia, but we're talking about Indonesia today.
Yes. So we get in very late into Indonesia.
Yeah, and what an experience. What a first impression of Indonesia.
Because we were walking through the airport and there's no signs as to go like anywhere.
No custom signs, no immigration. So we're just wandering around like chickens with our heads cut off.
And we're like the first people. We're like the first people out of the plane as well, which is rare. So we're like leading the pack, and we end up like doubling back, finding out this there's like the glass window type area. This is probably where the people do the immigration and everything. And then they're like, no, like you got to go backwards, and we're like, what? So we had to like do this like little maze to then get to this other set of booths, where we had to spend $35.
Yeah, unexpectedly, because there was the normal passport control. And if you don't know, if you've never traveled internationally, how it works is the citizens of that country get their own special lane. It happens in the U.S., happens everywhere in the world, and then foreign nationals get they all lumped into the other world. So we only see these like one set of passport gates open that say all passports, and we're like, oh, sick, okay, great, we can go there. And then somebody like tells us like, oh no, we can't get a visa, and we're like, what? And so we had to go to like this one stop that looks super sketchy. It's just like this stand in the middle of the airport, and like these guys are like doing visas and stuff, and they're like, oh well, you have to pay for a visa. And this is not completely unexpected because like some countries have visa on arrival, Indonesia being one of them. But it's not pleasant, because we find out that the visa fee is $35. And it's cash only.
Cash only. So this is where it's really funny that I think earlier in that day, used, or maybe it was a few days prior, in one of the airports, used currency exchange.
Right, in Osaka.
Right,
that whole debacle with the ATM and
So now you had like 50 USD on hand, and I brought 50 USD with me, like just in case. So we had the USD available. If not, that would have been a nightmare. Probably just finding an ATM.
I think there was an ATM, but the exchange rate would have been awful.
It would have been awful. So luckily we had 50 USD each, so we were able to pay for these tickets, which also had some like shitty conversion factor, like just looking at it. I remember.
Yeah, I think it was
and there were some fees and whatever.
Wild. Yeah.
It was just awful, but we get through. It's great. Now we just need to figure out how to get to our Airbnb and sleep tight. You would think.
You would think this would be an easy thing to do. Right.
Because we also, the next morning, need to transit very early in the morning in Jakarta, using their rail system and their bus system. But in order to do that, you need a card. And where do you get a card? Well, you can only get it in certain locations.
Yes.
Where the first stop, we didn't know would have a card at like...
Spoiler alert, it did not.
Yeah, at like 8 a.m. So we were like, well, we need to figure this out at like midnight after going through this awful flight and process. So I'm like, okay, let's look for the information desk, because that's probably where we can find information on this. So we walk up to this, lovely information desk, which is just a computer that has Skype open for some reason.
It's just in the parking lot, in the pickup area, the arrivals area. There's a monitor and a computer.
Yeah,
that's the information.
Skype open, and then you try to use Chrome or whatever. It's just all in a Indonesian, and like you can search it. So I walked to this person like right next by, like probably the information person.
He looked legit.
Yeah, well, he can't speak English.
No.
Nor understand it probably. So he brings us over to some other people. I'm like, okay, great, they can help us.
Yeah.
So we met some lovely taxi drivers who then tried to communicate with us while...
Which was, fun. They're wide awake and wired, and we're tired and exhausted, and they're trying to figure out what we want to do. And we think they're trying to help us. But oh boy, no, they're not. They're trying to scam us, and this is a common scam in Indonesia. So all across the world, taxis are just typically not a great idea because of these scams. But in Indonesia, they're like they're offering to help us, and we're like, okay, great, you guys know where to get the I think it's called the Jaklingko card or something like that. And they're like, for sure.
Transjakarta or something.
Yeah,
Transjakarta,
Jaklingko, it's like same thing. And, they're like, oh, well, you get it at the convenience store. So then this one goes and walks to the convenience store and, she gets like the cards and comes back and she's like, oh, it'll be like 150,000 or whatever rupiah, or like 350,000 rupiah. And, we're like, what? That doesn't make any sense because we know we have a friend from Indonesia who's like, we're texting. Yeah, shout out Jason, who we'll mention in another video. But yeah, and he's like, no, it should be like 35,000 rupiah max. And we're like, okay, we're getting scammed. And we then basically communicate with them. We're like, all right, we're going to go ask the convenience store guy himself. And they're like, oh no, like don't do that. Of course they're like that, right? And so we go there and we ask the guy and he's like, oh, we don't even sell it.
Yeah.
And at this point we're like, classic. Yeah. But there's another convenience store open. He's like, okay, they might have it down there. And, we walk out and the taxi drivers swarm us again. And we're like, no, thank you, go. Like, we're done here. We don't want, and we've already wasted like an hour at this point trying to get these cards. So, I'm getting cranky, I'm getting crabby, I'm tired. I'm sure you're in the same boat. Yeah. And, we go to sorry, my bag is moving over there. We go to the next convenience store and we're able to luckily get the card.
Yeah.
And then the whole grab thing was also just a pain in the butt.
Well, the other thing is they were telling us to load them up with like 100,000 rupiah, which when we were talking to Jason, we didn't ask him how much to load it up with. So we definitely loaded up with way more than we were supposed to, because they were saying it's 150,000 for the card and then 100,000 to like load up. It was only 35,000 for the card, and you really only need to load it up like 20,000, but
100,000 rupiah sounds like a lot. I think
it's like $4.
It's like $4. Right?
Yeah,
so that's kind of like the currency exchange we're going with.
Yeah.
So it's even if it was like 250,000 rupiah, it wouldn't have been like that much of a big deal. But still, like
But yes, then we grab to our Airbnb, which is its own little adventure.
Yeah, because apparently it's late at night and the Grab is down and everything like that, and the Grab driver was just chilling for like the longest time, like 30, 45 minutes. Yeah. And we're just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Can we just go? Mm-hmm. And finally she pulls up and, she doesn't speak the best English and she drives us around and, there's definitely a communication barrier. There's like first gate she goes to, it's like locked. And she's like, what do I do? I was like, oh, we'll go around. So I show her on the map and everything. And then there's the whole case of, she asked for 10,000 extra rupiah. And we figured out later that, there's like the gate fee because we ran into this problem with other Grabs. And she should have just added it to the app. And I think she was trying to communicate with that. She was like, application fee. And I was like, what? And so then I just gave her like 10,000 rupiah, which again was like 60 cents.
Yeah.
So I thought I got scammed there as well. And, I was just like, I was in such a bad mood. It was awful. Like, my first impression, I filmed the video, posted it on Instagram. I was like, my first impression of this country is awful. Like, I was texting my mom. I was like, man, this sucks. Like, this is awful. I'm like done right now. I'm like, oh. So, we get to our Airbnb. We try to take a hot shower. Aren't able to do that, which is going to be a common trend now for the rest of, at least Asia. Spoiler alert. And, finally you're able to go to bed.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, that was a rough day and night. And I know for me, Indonesia was a country that I was really looking forward to.
Yeah.
And you were just so fucking pissed at this point. And I was like getting irritated by how like pissed you were. And like you're like, because when you get cranky, you definitely let that like impact everything. For me, I just get like irritated, but like I'm still like locked in the sense of like we need to, like you probably would have just like the way you would do it, you'd probably be like, fuck it, I'm gonna spend $30 just to like Uber home and like not worry about this shit. $30 tomorrow Uber, like you would probably do that. Yeah, me, I'm like, no, we still gotta figure this out. Yeah. So it was very like when we were at the airport and we're trying to figure, like you were definitely getting like very pissed at me for like trying to continue to like get us to get all these tasks done and get home. And we got home late as shit, but like I also was like kind of upset with you because you're like, oh, this country sucks, all this stuff. And I'm like, let's give it some time. I was cranky, I was crabby, and I was, tired. And that's not a good, when I'm tired, I get really, really like irritable, and it's not a good combination. So that night I was definitely in a bad mood. But the next morning I was fine, slept in a little bit. I was, still a little bit tired, but like, I'm after a good night's sleep, I'm ready to go again. And so, the bus stop we have to go to is a little bit further. And so we're walking through Indonesia, and Indonesia is not walkable. No, and we're walking with our luggage as well. Yeah. That's the other thing. And, it's interesting because, this is very much not a touristy part of the city. It's very, residential. It's a nice area, but it's very residential. It's very, lived in. So, like this is like the authentic Jakarta experience you would have.
And, you know, there's one point in time where I trip and I'm like, God, and, you know, there was a little bit of at this point I was fine, but I just tripped and I got hurt myself.
I think he's still pissed about he probably hates his country so much.
Right, I'm fine, dude. Like, I just tripped and fell, and like, you know, I'm like, I fell over, and you're like, you're like, it's not gonna make any, you're not making it any easier on yourself. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like,
so then we have a little quarrel thing, and then I know we like walked through some like yoga session going on the street, and we're trying to find out where the hell this bus stop is, and we eventually figure it out. And like one bus comes by, and
it was full.
We say bus like it's a van.
It's like it's hard to describe.
It's
but
just
it's
like
a van.
It's just a van that has a back that and they're full. So we're like, okay, we'll wait for the next one. Wait for the next one. This is the other thing. Like we're supposed to take like a specific van from A to B, not just any van, but like they don't really have numbers. Like they do, but like it's so fucking hard to tell which one is which. So we just take the next one. Like the next one shows up that and I'm pretty sure it might not have been the exact right one because it was following a different route, and we were just like, are we supposed to hop off like early because we weren't sure if it was going where we wanted to go. Right. So we were like, do we hop off early or do we wait until it starts diverting and then just hop off then? So we stay on longer than we were supposed to.
I think the bus driver was trying to like tell us to get off, but we, you know, there was again communication language barrier.
Yeah.
And this was like the people on the bus were luckily super sweet, and they were like
laughing at
it. Yeah, I mean, we made them laugh, but they helped us, you know, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and then we get to like this downtown area of Jakarta, traffic everywhere.
Well, first, like, we missed it. Like I was saying, we missed the stop. Like we straight up hop off the wrong stop.
Oh yeah.
We had to tell them like, hey, can we just get dropped off here? We randomly tap out, drop off, and then we walk. We're trying to figure out where the fuck the next train, because now we're trying to take like the buses. It's like legit buses. Which this is where you can get the transit card.
Yes.
Which at this point we already needed to use a transit card on this van, basically. So that's why we needed the card in the first place. So we start walking, and there's basically these bus stops. There's these buses that go through the road, and there's buses that go through the center, and they have their own separate bus lanes. I think we were supposed to take a bus that was on the road, but you're telling me no, that makes no sense. We got to take a bus in the center.
I think on my thing it looked like we were supposed to take a bus in the center.
Mine looked like we were supposed to take one on the road.
So that's where
the stop was on the side, not in the center. And you were like, no, that makes no sense.
Because mine was showing it was on the center.
Okay.
So that's where it was like, because like the buses on the side were like the vans, I think, and then like the buses on like the center were like the actual like BRT lines. So anyway, all this is to say, very confusing.
Yeah, very confusing. We just hop on a random, like we talk to the guy. He gives us completely different instructions on how to get to where we want to get. Because we're just trying to get to the train station. Yeah. Like we're doing all this random stuff just to get to the train station. Yeah. And he's like, okay, you hop on, whatever. And we're like trying to take notes. We don't really understand. We hop on this train or this bus, and we're going over like what we're trying to do. And luckily, some guy overhears us who actually understands English. Yes. And he's like, hey, do you guys need help? And we're like, actually, we do. And at this point, it was kind of a gamble. Yeah. Because everyone else who's asked if we need help in Indonesia at this point were trying to scam us.
Right.
So we're like, hey, like, sure. And he
cautious and but no, he was really cool. He was legitimate. He was very helpful, very friendly, and he was an Afghan refugee. Yeah. So Indonesia has a refugee program, and he was doing a degree in computer science. Yep. So like he was talking about how he made his like 2-hour commute one way every day, and we're like, how do you do this? Yeah, crazy. Super sweet guy. I forget his name.
I think we both forgot his name.
Because it was loud on the bus as well, and like it was, we were hot and bothered at this point. Yeah. But yeah, he was really great, and it was nice knowing that strangers, still can help you out, and like there are like good people in the world, and that was a nice reminder that definitely made me feel a lot better. Yeah. And that was kind of like, even though like the chaos of the bus system was still there, it was like meeting him and like just getting help was like, okay, like that really put me into like a better headspace. Because I was fine that morning, but like just with the chaos of the buses, I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy. Yeah, worse than India. Yeah. But we met him there, and
so he's like, okay, we're gonna hop off on this stop, and then we're gonna hop on another one or whatever. Yeah. So like, okay, we're just following him. We hop off, and we're getting ready to hop on the next one, and I look into my pocket, and I'm like, I don't know where my card is.
Classic.
So I lose my Jakarta card. Yeah. I don't know how it happened. I think it fell into my pocket when we were transitioning from the train to off the train. And I'm like, what do I say? Because obviously we need to go where we're trying to go. I don't want to fuck up this guy's commute. And also like Liam and like also. I'm like, hey, like I don't have my card. Is that like a problem? And he's like, oh shit. So we then walk to at the station where you can get a card, and he starts talking in Indonesian to the people who work there and trying to get them to like explain the situation. He's like, okay, it's like 50,000 to top up, get the card and then top it up with enough to, And I'm like, okay, awesome. Does it take card? And they're like, no, like just cash. So we look through and we have like 35
something like that
thousand left over. That's all of our cash, and we're like, oh my god, we're so sorry, like we don't have it. So he pays for it. We just give him as much as we can of our own, which is like $2, but
still like
$2 out of $3. So so we kind of like 15,000, which is enough for him for like a week basically. Like he has to use like a week's worth of his transit funds to help us out, and I feel bad about it, but like he was helping us out, and super thankful for him to help us get through that. And we're lucky to quickly like make the next train. We follow it. We start talking even more, and we're chatting, and eventually we had to part our ways once we got very close to the train station. And I remember even then the next train we took, we hopped off a stop early, but then we took the next one. We finally get to the main central bus station.
Yes.
Which is how like very close to the train station.
Right. And we had several options, but our friend had told us to just grab it. Yeah. He was like, it's not worth it to figure out transit, just grab. Yeah. And that's ultimately what we did. We debated going back and forth taking like the light rail, but then we're just like, grab is probably the easiest case. And once again, we ran into the problem of the Grab driver sitting and like for 20 minutes not doing anything. So like, I don't know what happens with Grab. Yeah. But Grab, like that definitely was like not great.
Yeah. And we're trying to make a specific like we call it
whoosh train.
Whoosh train from Jakarta to Bandung, and they only leave like every hour or so. And at this point, we're like, okay, we missed the noon one that we wanted to take. We gotta make this like 1 o'clock one, because if we don't, then we're like getting into Bandung like super late. Yeah. So we're still like kind of a little bit like, okay, come on, Grab guy, like what do we do if he doesn't show up? Like, are we gonna miss this one as well? Luckily, he shows up, takes us to the train station. We get in. And now we have to figure out how to get our tickets.
Right.
So I stand in the ticket line. You're walking around.
I try to go to like the kiosk. The kiosk isn't working.
That doesn't work. Luckily, the line moves quick enough that I'm able to get, Liam comes back. We get 2 tickets. The lady helps us out, picks us seats and everything, and explains, okay, you're going to take it to here, then you're going to get off, you're going to go to another one, and that one's free, and all this stuff, and you're going to get into Bandung. And we're like, awesome. But now we have 10 minutes, and we're starving because we haven't eaten like all day. Yeah. So we go to Subway. Woo!
Oh yeah, Subway.
And I'm panicking the whole time because we have like 12 minutes, and I'm like, are we gonna have time? Like, take some time to make these sandwiches. They throw them in the toaster, all this stuff. I'm like, oh my god, we're not gonna have time. And we order, and I'm like, oh my god, we have like 6 minutes left now, and we finally pay. And it's like 4 minutes left until the train leaves, and Liam's like, no, we're fine. Yeah. We just walk up. And guess what? We walk up, we have to go through security, all this shit.
Oh, it's crazy.
I'm still losing my mind, and we finally get through, and this lady's like, we're like, oh, we're going to, like, Bandung. She's like, go. Yeah. So we, like, kind of running, and there's a lady behind us who's, like, running. Like, we're the last people, basically, that are allowed to get on this train, because it's about to leave. And we just hop on the first car, and we just were like, we'll figure out our seats from there. So we make it, and we sit in the whoosh train.
Yeah, it was nice. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They say like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It's like it's a big thing. Like, Indonesia has gotten, and the politics behind the high-speed rail is, we
won't get into that.
But, there's definitely some things going on behind the scenes. But yeah, I mean, Indonesia has a very nice, very efficient, very clean, operable high-speed rail network. And they're like, all the announcers are like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like, they're very excited. It's like a whole brand, which is really cool and really fun. And the whoosh train was great. That was like, I think that was great. Yeah. Subway was not great.
No.
It was pretty mid. It was actually mid as hell, I would say.
Yeah, Subway was a definition of mid, which at this point, it was food in our stomach. Yeah. And I wasn't terribly upset about it. At this point, I was more concerned about making this next random train because there weren't a ton of instructions, but everyone just hops out like a flock of seagulls and just starts flocking to the like escalators. So we're like, okay, we'll follow them. Yep. We ask some random dude like, hey, and he's like, yay, like hop on this train. And we take this very like low speed local train network that eventually gets us into Bandung.
Yeah, and immediately right off the bat, we find out that Bandung, like Jakarta, is not walkable.
Not walkable. But
so what do?
We walk.
We walk to our Airbnb, which takes about an hour.
Yeah. Through the busy streets that half the time don't have a sidewalk. We're going uphill with our luggage on the the sidewalks, if they do exist, are completely, in disarray. They're just rock and stone and just mud and all this random awful stuff. We finally get to our Airbnb, which is in this complex of 4 really tall buildings. We get there and it's pretty nice, but we run into an issue immediately when we walk in, and we notice the bed.
The bed is like a double bed?
Yeah.
Twin bed or something?
I think it's basically like as wide as this bed, maybe a little bit wider than this bed that we're sitting on right now.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Because, both of us are, 2 pretty big dudes.
Well, speak for yourself. Lanky at least. But yeah, it was that was a problem for later, because at this point we're like, well, we're hungry. Yeah. Again, we wanted to try some of the local food, but there's a problem. There was a big problem, because
a wet problem.
A very wet problem. It starts pouring, like pouring,
then it dawns on us why, because we're in monsoon season.
The wet season. Yeah.
So it's like it's going to be raining. And at this point, we're both chatting, and I think, Brayden mentions it. He's like, there's another area in Indonesia that starts with B that, is very well known. I was like, could that area possibly be the area that everybody goes to Indonesia for?
Yeah.
And yes, you might be asking yourselves, why the hell are you guys going to Jakarta and Bandung, which, nobody has ever heard of Bandung, and not Bali? And, that was an oversight on our part.
Well, it wasn't an oversight. I had an emotional attachment to Jakarta due to a research project I did in grad school. And additionally, my friend Jason lived in Jakarta over a summer to visit his family, because he's a lot of family that lives in that area. So I was like, oh, Jakarta, that's the place to be. That, if you're going to Indonesia, that's the place. And I also have an artist that I knew way back when who toured Asia and went to Jakarta. So I'm like, oh, Jakarta, that's where you go. And Bali was just something that completely slipped my mind. And at this point, I'm like, oh, fuck, did we make a mistake coming here? But I look into the Bali weather, it's pouring there as well. And I'm like, okay, it would have been awful regardless of where we went when it came to weather. And the Bali experience, that's for, when you're taking a lovely lady or something, honeymoon, something like that. This trip, we're definitely roughing it a lot more. Yeah. We're doing the Jakarta and Bandung experience so that we don't have to do the Jakarta and Bandung experience again.
I don't ever want to do that again, I would say.
So, yeah, we're contemplating what to do, and at this point, it's like, okay, it's not going to let up for a while, so let's just plan out the next few days and figure out where we're going to get dinner. And we actually end up going to a very close place nearby. There's a shopping area, mall, food area. It's sort of popular in Bandung, and we go to local Indonesian type restaurant where we order a lot of different dishes.
It was good. We ordered rendang, nasi, oxtail stew. It was all really good.
Yeah, it's all pretty good. Yeah.
And then we got dessert. We got this mango fruit float at the end for dinner. We went to another place. We walked around for a little bit.
And that was a chain, which we didn't realize. Yeah. But it was still good. We wanted to get something else, and they only had 3 things. So it was whatever. Yeah. We're hungry. And I remember talking, at this point, I was starting to explain my project, my research project, be trust me, bro, this is why I cared about Jakarta and Bandung.
So many of the places we're going that Brayden wants to go to are, some artists went there and made a song about it. He heard about it in jet lag, or it has to do with grad school. Yeah. These are the 3 criteria.
Well, hey, Marrakesh is at least going to be a good one.
Yeah, Marrakesh
because of grad school, there's a ton of Moroccans and ASDL, so shout out to them. Aerospace System Design Lab is where I did my grad work, so that's that. But yeah, so we then head back, head to sleep,
and not very comfortable night of sleep.
No, it wasn't.
It worked out, and that's all we'll say about that.
Yeah. Wake up the next morning.
There's this park in Bandung. I forget the name of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure we have it somewhere, but it's one of the famous parks. And when I we make these videos better, and we actually have scripts for them. We'll tell you all of that's what we're gonna do. By the way, we're gonna do these videos as a rough draft, and then we're gonna go back and film really nice ones when we're all done. Yeah. And we'll mention all the names of things in there. But yeah, we go to this park, and there's it's a nature park. There's really pretty mountains, beautiful valleys. There's caves, and finally there's monkeys. You see monkeys wandering around. So many monkeys. They're causing chaos. They're being monkeys. It's great.
Yeah, that was lovely. And the caves of which were like, we were cool to walk through, but there were bats, which definitely was not advertised.
A little bit concerning because bats carry rabies.
They do carry rabies.
You know, one of the big concerns we always have caving, because, you know, if you didn't know, I caved a lot in college. Not a lot, but I caved in college, was bats. You don't really want to mess with bats. You don't want to shine anything on them, not only because you don't want to mess with bats' sleep schedules, but you also don't want to get bit by a bat because of rabies. So we hear like this squeaking, and we're like, "What is that?" And then we look up and we see all these bats. We're like, "Oh, let's get out of here!"
Yeah.
So that was not great.
Yeah. And we.
I hope I didn't get bit. I hope neither of us, because like sometimes bats bite you and you don't really know. So I don't think we got hit with anything.
No way.
We didn't get hit with anything.
No way.
So I think we were good, but still like not great.
Yeah. And we were at this point because a lot of the stuff we're doing now is what we wanted to do the day before, but because it was pouring and everything, we got in so late. We now have to like speed run Bandung, and we basically have a checkout time at Airbnb. So it's like, well, we have to go out and back at this park. Yeah. There's so much to do at this park. We went a little further. There was this area with domesticated deer, and then even further, there's like a really cool waterfall.
Right.
And we're like, I don't think we have the time to go all the way out, all the way back, and then grab all the way back to Airbnb, check out in time. Right. So we basically doubled back. And we end up with like 15 minutes extra time because we were being a little conservative with our time. We ordered the Grab and everything, but while we're waiting, we noticed this race is going on. And we saw signs like 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer while we were walking through this trail. But yeah, there's a race and 3 hour and a half and, you know, a lot of cheering, some festivities and stuff. We see people cross the finish line. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, this must be a marathon. Yeah. There must have been just like a half marathon or marathon just in this area, which is wild. Must have started like 4 a.m. or something in the morning because I don't know, like before the park opened or something. And yeah, so we get to walk around there. Eventually grab, and the Grab driver gave us some like local. Did it upload?
Yeah.
We're working on the
episode 4
right now.
Well, you'll get like episode 4 and 5 like back to back.
Hopefully we'll see. But anyways, we basically then grab back down to our Airbnb, pack up, grab our stuff, and at this point, it's like, okay, we don't want to keep grabbing everywhere, even though it's relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Let's walk again, and then grab. So we walk to this local, like, government building.
Yeah, it's like some museum, some government building.
Yeah.
It's like a colonial building. And find
Dutch
another marathon there. There's another race.
Well, it wasn't a marathon. Yeah, another race was going on there.
5K maybe or something. So I guess it was race day in Bandung.
I guess.
But yeah, we saw like, because Bandung, so like the reason there's like colonial architecture there is because like it used to be like the Dutch like tourism area in Indonesia. A lot of Dutch like higher ups in society.
It's the flora and fauna, which we just noticed.
Right.
And that's the caves as well, which were used. They had history.
They have like, you know, World War II history as
Dutch
well.
and Japanese caves.
Which, you know, spoiler alert, we'll be talking a lot more about World War II in the, you know, future videos because of certain relevancies and relevant events, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we check out like the historical like colonial buildings in Bandung, and you know finally there's like this market street. You know, like, and we're trying to find food at this point, and
we're trying to grab there in the first place.
Right,
the dude cannot drop us off where we're supposed to be because it's a walk only road. So he eventually just gives up after like looping like for like 15 minutes.
We tell him, we're like, yeah, after 15 minutes we're like, dude, can we just like get off here? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. Like just like walk there.
Yeah.
And so like he was cool, but like we're like. After so many times of just sitting in Bandung Indonesian traffic, we're just like, we're sick of this. Like, let's just get out. We're hungry or you know, whatever.
So we walked this street, pretty cool street.
Yeah, it was a market street.
Yeah, it was a market street. A lot of tourist stuff to do, and we walked by a stand with durian. That was smelly, like we've come to know and experience.
I didn't smell like I expected it to smell far worse. In case you don't know, durian is this fruit that smells like. It smells bad, but it doesn't smell like people say it smells like hot garbage mixed with raw sewage. I think it smells like overripe pumpkins.
Yeah.
So like, like I guess you could say it smells like trash, but like it smells like overripe fruit.
You're like, why would people eat this if it smells so awful? Well, apparently it tastes better than it smells, and we judge this later on.
We did judge this later
on. But we basically
have opinions on durian.
We do have opinions, some of which will happen in this video. But we then. Eventually, we're like, okay, let's head to the train station.
Yeah.
Head to the train station, and we go to the wrong room. We're waiting for the customer service of a different train line.
We need to book the whoosh back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're waiting there for like forever, and we finally get to this other place, and we see all these people trying to walk out of this room to head to the tracks, and we talked to the lady like, hey, do we get a ticket? And she's like, you know, yada yada yada, and we basically
She's like, oh, you don't need a ticket to go up to like the Whoosh station. You need a ticket after that.
Yeah, so
like,
she's
okay.
like, just fill out this Googled form, and she had hotspot me because I didn't have. I mean, I don't know. She hotspots me. I'm to fill out the form, and I'm just like, okay, you're good to go. So we hop on, we get it, and you know, we don't have to wait. Luckily, it's great. We get to the next station, and there we book the tickets for the Whoosh.
Book the Whoosh, and yeah, it's fine. We get some snacks. We
chill.
You know, chill. It's fine. You know, we whoosh back. Whoosh. That was fun. High speed rail is always fun. And then we get into Jakarta. We then grab from the Whoosh station to our Airbnb in Jakarta.
We're just like, fuck it. It's like a 40-minute walk. Let's just grab. Like,
and this Airbnb was really nice.
Yeah, very nice.
And there's not really much else to really say about that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And we were like,
Airbnb.
Yeah, so we were
close to everything as well. And at this point, we're feeling good. You know, I'm like, okay, my opinions on Indonesia are definitely shifting. You know, it's definitely like, you know, despite all the chaos and the grab and the hot weather, it's like I'm like, you know, this is fun. This is a cool country. And you know, that night we basically decided we're gonna just go to like this really nice restaurant that you know the Airbnb host actually recommended. Yeah. And we got pretty much the same thing we got for lunch, which is like rendang, nasi, and satay. Which rendang is like one of the beef dishes in Indonesia. It's like spicy. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But
I liked it. It was just really spicy. Yeah. So I couldn't eat a lot of it.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what I got, but I got some.
You got like satay. It was like skewers, basically.
Oh, I got skewers. Yeah,
I got like a rice dish, which is like the nasi.
Yeah,
so.
It was all very good, very good. I think we were really happy with that meal, and it was like a really nice like restaurant and really nice meal, and I think it came out to like $10-15 or something. It was like ridiculously cheap.
The Indonesian rupiah is doing really weak against the dollar right now. So like, that was something we noticed across Asia was the power of the U.S. dollar. Yeah. So.
And the next order of business was walking to one of the nearby malls because there's two big like malls in Jakarta near where we're at that we're supposed to go to. So we walked there and we're right across the street from it. And that's where the question comes, how the hell do we get across the street? Because there's a massive roundabout, a fuck ton of cars, no one's stopping, there's no crosswalks. And we like walk to the left and we're like, I don't think we can do that. Walk to the right, I don't think we can do that. Eventually we're just like, screw it, like it's like let's walk to this like, you know, bus station, and we find a crosswalk there, luckily, after spending like 30 minutes just trying to figure this out. And we finally get into the mall, and it's pretty damn late. I think we got, what was it, red velvet cake?
Red velvet cake, yeah.
It was pretty dry, but it was pretty good.
It was good, it was decent. Like, yeah, I mean, it was end of the day, it's like, I'm not expecting it to be fresh, right? So it's going to be dry. And yeah, I think we were like the last customer because they were closing the shop. Yep. So, you know, we got dessert, which was nice.
And then we walked back home and slept it off because that was a long ass day.
Yeah, we walked, and you know, that was a precursor. We should always know if we have a long day, it's going to be followed by an even longer day, because the next day we go to this really cool area called Mini Indonesia.
Yeah, it's like Taman Mini Indonesia or something like that, which was about an hour bus ride, and this was quite simple.
Yeah, this was like really well marked, and you know, the big bus goes right there, and drops you off, and but yeah, a little bit of like background of just like what this park is. This is like kind of like the Smithsonian meets Epcot. So you have like a bunch of like museums there, like a bunch of like museums about like Indonesia, and then you have like you know, pavilions for each of like these, what is it, states in Indonesia, regions in Indonesia. So like each like region has like its own different architecture style, own different culture, own different history. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of ethnic groups in Indonesia, as we'd find out later. And so like this is kind of just a way of celebrating all of them. And then they have like this big like lake in the middle with like a miniature map of Indonesia, hence the name Mini Indonesia. Yeah. Really cool place. We walked around, we experienced all of like the pavilions, you know. We went into the Balinese pavilion, or not Balinese, the Papua Museum. Saw a little bit about Papua culture, and then we also like just wandered into like this dance competition. Apparently, and
I forget which pavilion specifically was near, but it was like one of the Java ones or whatever. And there's because we hear this music and we're like, oh, this sounds cool. And there's like a ton of Indonesian people just filling up this one like pavilion, and all these people in these different outfits dressed up.
Cool.
It was really, really cool. So we actually watched one of the performances. Couldn't tell you which specific region it was for anything, but it was really, really cool to see that cultural like that culture on display, and also just stumbling into this competition.
Yeah.
They're judges. They were giving
they
feedback.
were giving, like, we noticed that, like, the judges were like, talking, and it was really cool. And dances were really beautiful. I mean, I don't know how good they were in terms of, like, competition wise, because I'm not by any means an expert in Indonesian traditional dance, but from what I saw, I was like, oh, these are really cool dances.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And it was funny because I've noticed something. Brayden with music, and especially live music. This was not live music, but Brayden with music is like a moth to a flame. If there's music, I notice he will just start gravitating toward the music, and it's really funny. It's just like, because even in we'll get there, but there was like a little bit of a live music this night in Indonesia, and it's just like every time he hears live music, we somehow end up there. I'm just like, wow, it really is like a moth to a flame. But it was really cool. And another thing about like this area, this little mini Indonesia, is they have like a bunch of different museums. They have like a military history museum, they have like a transit museum. And they have another fun museum with a really fun little jingle.
Yeah, it's a like air and space type museum, mainly space museum, and they call it Sky World. Now, the crazy thing is the admission to the park was like 350 rupiah, so it was like the equivalent of like $2 US. Yeah. To get in just the Sky World was like 800 or something, which was like $7, and it was cash only, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Which we didn't, or maybe it was card. I can't even remember, but we basically spent like twice the cost of admission just to get into these lovely pavilions and all this stuff to go to this place called Sky World, which we're like, what does Indonesia have to say and share about space? Yeah. And a lot of it was in Indonesian. Right. Some of it was in English.
Some of it was.
Lots of really interesting stuff. If I was a child in Indonesia growing up, I would have been like Sky World, like, oh, this place is awesome. I want to get, I want to explore space and everything. Like, it was really cool.
And to their credit, like a lot of the Indonesia like stuff is like very like American, Soviet Union space race stuff, because I mean that's like the big era in space. But they do have astronauts. Like Indonesia has two astronauts who went up on the space shuttle. I want to say Columbia, one of the STS missions. Not the Columbia mission that Columbia was destroyed in.
It's like a year or two before that.
Yeah, it was because in case you didn't know, the space shuttles flew multiple missions. So the Challenger and the Columbia are the two space shuttles that tragically were destroyed in really horrific accidents, both of which could have been prevented, but that's beside the point.
Tangents.
And so, there was tragic loss of life from both, and tragic, days in, U.S. history, aerospace history, world history, losing these two space shuttles. But anyway, so like the space shuttles flew multiple missions. They were reusable. That was the whole purpose of the space shuttle. And so these two Indonesian astronauts, like Indonesia's first two astronauts, flew on the space shuttle. And I forget what they were doing. They were doing some type of experiments. But yeah, like Indonesia, like they have a display, obviously a source of national pride. Yeah. And I forget exactly what else, but like Indonesia has like astronomers, astrophysics who helped with like the space race as well, like the moon landing. Yeah. So like Indonesia has made a significant impact to aerospace and space race.
Yeah, they have a couple sites and stuff as well. So they definitely helped. They had rockets that they built and stuff. So that was cool to learn about. And the last really cool thing about Sky World was they had this jingle that we heard while we were downstairs, and it's just on. You kind of hear it faintly in the distance for a lot through some like muffled speaker. And once we got closer, I'm like, wait a minute, they're saying Sky World. Like, wait, this is a Sky World. Dun 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 dun. Anyway, so we hear this song, and I'm telling you, like, wait, they're saying Sky World. I'm like, listen. And this is the most like muffled, like bass boosted, like torn to shit.
One of the speakers is awful.
Oh, it's awful.
It's just awful. It's completely washed.
It's so washed out, but you can hear the Skyworld jingle that's super catchy. So that's something that I'd spend $8 just to hear that song.
It was a good song. There was something about just standing in Skyworld, listening to this song play on this broken speaker that made a man feel a certain way.
That's right. And what was also really cool is that admission to this museum also gave you admission to a little water park that they had outside, and I feel like that's where most of the people were when we were there. There was a ton of children there, so $8 for a really cool museum and also a water park for the day. Like, and there also was like a 3D or like 4D exhibit thing that we could have done, and on top of that they had a what was it, like planetarium which we didn't end up. We were running low on time at this point to get back and everything, so. that was our end of mini Indonesia. I mean, I know we were starving. We were trying to get food.
Yeah.
We just grabbed some random like ice cream. It was okay. But we then take the train back, or the bus back, which we had to figure out the bus stop, all this stuff. It's always a thing. But we hop on the right bus. We get our way back. Get back to Airbnb, drop ourselves off, and we're like, okay, great.
We went back to the Airbnb.
Oh, you're so right. We went all the
yeah.
way up to the
park, the big central park.
Yeah, and I don't think you have the name of it on your thing, do you?
It's Monas.
Monas.
Yeah.
Monas, which
is like the big monument.
Big spire monument.
And there's like a big mosque there as well in that
big
park.
Mosque.
So it's like the central park of Jakarta.
Yeah,
really.
So we walked around there for a little bit, and then we went to the National Museum of
Indonesia.
Yeah, the
National Museum, which was really cool.
Really cool.
So one of the things that Indonesia is well known for is, we're talking about Indonesia's contributions to aerospace. Something they've made really significant, which those contributions should not be downplayed. Those are significant contributions. But something they've made even more contribution to is human evolution and human discovering human evolution, because Indonesia has like the most amount of like Homo erectus like fossils found there out of anywhere in the world.
And the first one was found in Java.
Yeah. So and Homo erectus of course is like one of the ancestors of humans. It was like I think it was right before like Neanderthal or something, or maybe Neanderthals are Homo erectus.
It's like the first.
Okay.
That's what I thought. It was like the first. It's the between primates and humans. It's like the first transition, and that's why they're saying the oldest humans might have traced back.
I think that is what it is.
They found some eventually like in Africa and something like that, but there were a lot in Indonesia.
So they think it's like
that there was explaining like, oh, maybe human civilization started in Indonesia.
Right.
Like, we don't ever fully know, but this all happened like 100 years ago when there was this big gap between our knowledge of how the hell did we get to these different versions of humans. Like there must be some gap in our knowledge, and that's where they discovered Homo erectus in Indonesia. And I mean, we also learned then about all the different regions and
different ethnic groups of Indonesia,
different ethnic groups,
which were a lot, and it was crazy. They had like a thing as well there, which was really cool. It was like a facial recognition. Again, facial recognition. But this thing would basically like look at you, scan your face, and it would tell you like what your like ethnic background in Indonesia, which I thought was pretty cool because Indonesia is a very diverse country, and it's just it was cool learning a little bit about how diverse.
So when we waited in line for a lot,
we were not that culturally insensitive, where we waited in line.
Yeah,
for
we
this.
did not do that. There were also two other sort of exhibits. Yeah. The first of which was like a lot of Hindu artifacts.
Just learning about a lot of statues of like Lord Shiva and Ganesha and everything like that, which was really cool. It's something that like I'm fascinated by. Like, I'm not practicing Hindu, but my dad was, and I'm half Indian. So Hinduism does hold a place in my heart, and it just is like, every time I see like Hindu artifacts or like statues like that, I'm like, I really want to learn more about it. So.
And it was interesting because it's a big, Hinduism isn't really practiced that much in Indonesia anymore, which has its own reasons. And I know this video is going to go long, so we'll continue through, but the last exhibit was for Bali art.
Right.
Because basically in the 30s, they started going to Bali, like Europeans started going to Bali. It's like a big tourist destination. And the artwork there was something that was really like highly coveted.
Yeah.
And eventually after a couple of years, basically the demand was way higher than the supply. So people started coming up with cheap knockoff versions of it. Cutting corners, duplicating, original artworks. And some Europeans noticed this and were like, even one of them I think was like, Indonesian.
Yeah.
But there was like a group of like 4 or 5 people who were like, whoa, let's try to fix this. So they created their own little like task force, own like coalition group that was in charge of preserving the Balinese art. And that was really cool. It happened in like the mid to late 30s. Yeah. World War II caused this to stop because one of the guys was German, and there was like maybe like Japanese. Like it was interesting. It was that history. Like one of them straight up died. Yeah, got bombed in World War II.
Like Dresden or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
crazy stuff. But they then continued afterwards after World War II and basically have now an exhibit of artworks which was given to the Dutch because it has its own history, but it's finally reclaimed by Indonesia about 2 years ago or something like that. And
it was basically
on display in Indonesia.
It was one of those, great colonial things where, a European power would go in and be like, oh yeah, your artwork, your cultural heritage is ours now. This was, I think, a little bit different. More like the Indonesian government had like an agreement with the Dutch government where they said, yeah, you guys can take this, but at any time we want it back, you're going to give it back. And Indonesia asked for it back. And surprisingly enough, the Netherlands, honored that agreement and weren't like, oh no, you guys can't do it. So they have all this Balinese artwork, which is really pretty and really beautiful and definitely worth something checking out. And I would go back to, we both talked about it. Obviously Bali is like big tourist place, everything like that. And if I ever go back to Indonesia, which I do plan on, which again, my first impressions aside, I was so mad, I was so uncomfortable, so angry. But now I'm like, I would go back to Indonesia. I would go back to Bali, but not for the beaches. And this is gonna sound bad because it's like we live close to beaches in the U.S. You can go to Hawaii, you can go to the Virgin Islands, go to California. You have really nice beaches there. So I would not go all the way to Bali for the beaches, but I would definitely go there to learn more about the culture and the art because I really enjoyed learning about it just in Jakarta.
Yeah. So and just to keep the ball rolling, we then. I share a similar sentiment. Definitely want to go to Bali as well. But we then next went to the other mall that was nearby. And on the way there, we got stuck behind a couple who is being insufferably slow. And then we try to pass them. They then run to pass us back.
Which is crazy.
It's just insane stuff. I was so fucking pissed. I'm sorry. I was so pissed. And we're so hungry at this point that we see a Popeyes and we're like, fuck it. So we get Popeyes. It was pretty good.
It was decent, yeah.
It was pretty good. It was a little spicy as well. And instead of biscuits, they did rice there, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And we got what was the sauce? It was
bulgogi sauce.
Bulgogi sauce. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So we got like the sandwich. We got rice biscuits, grilled chicken, and then we got popcorn chicken as well.
And then we walked around the nearby mall, and this is where Liam was talking about. I heard live music, and I go out, and it was some kind of company putting on a show to like
Lunar New Year or something.
I don't even know.
It's red. There's a lot of red.
I think that was just the company itself. They were red, and they were trying to advertise themselves.
I thought there was something about like Lunar New Year there. I don't know.
There was stuff about Lunar New Year, but I think that was different. I think it was basically like they're probably like an entertainment company. I think that was what I was trying to understand. It was like Hammer Entertainment or something, and they were trying to like showcase like we can help you guys. Probably it was just all like an elaborate like scheme to get people to use their service, which it's not a scheme, it's marketing. Like it's cool. Game is game, and we saw that, and eventually we were okay. They were doing karaoke or whatever. It was really cool, and we were trying to find a place to get martabak manis, which is its own little like Indonesian dish that my friend Jason told us about, and we really wanted to get. It's like kind of what's the term? Like
is it?
It's like pancakes, but that aren't like fully. I mean, it's like fried dough pancake with toppings. And the place that we wanted to find that was supposed to be in the basement didn't exist anymore. So then we're like, fuck this. We're going to go outside. We're going to get it like on the street somewhere. And Liam,
it's a little bit risky.
It was definitely a little risky, but we found an establishment that was a little bit off the street. Like it was on the road. It wasn't like on the road. It was like in its own building thing. And we ordered the two martabak manis with like the cheese and chocolate, and then the chocolate and almond or something, and they were very good.
They were really
good. We bring it back to our place, eat it, really good. But we now have to crash because we have to get up fucking early. We have to get up like 4 a.m. for maybe even earlier.
Yeah, it was something. I think it was 4 a.m.
It's 4 a.m. because we have a flight out of Jakarta to Kuala Lumpur. Spoiler alert. So we then get up early, and of course for me, this is the day of the NFC Championship game where we're playing the Eagles. My Eagles, Eagles Fly, are playing the Commanders. So I
have actually, long story about why I like the Commanders. My dad, my parents used to live in the Nova area, DC, and my dad's a big Commanders fan. Back when they were a name that I shouldn't say.
Guy doesn't care about football at all, claiming, I'm a Commanders fan. Okay, whatever.
Commanders, this has been an argument.
Boo. Anyways, my Eagles stomped their ass.
It was bad.
It was great. It was a lovely day.
It's not good.
And we grabbed to the airport, and we get in. There's like no line for security, and we're like, it went pretty smoothly. We decided to try durian in the form of a filling of a pastry, and Well, I'll tell you this. It does not taste better than it smells.
No.
It tastes just like how it smells.
It was awful.
It was awful.
I
took it like 2 bites and I didn't
took
finish.
one and I was like, wow, this is awful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, and we gave the benefit of the doubt. We're like, maybe this is just because it's like a filling in a pastry and we don't know how old the pastry is. Like, whatever. Like, it could just be that. But yeah, first impression of durian was smells not great and tastes also
not good.
Not great.
Not good. Yeah. So that was that. We waited in line for the plane, and my Eagles stopped the Commanders, and that was very lovely to see. And we hop on a plane to Kuala Lumpur, which we'll talk about on our next video, and another destination right after that, which
was a lot of fun. But
do we want to share or no?
We'll leave that. We'll leave that to
there. Cliffhanger on that one.
Yeah, impressions of Indonesia definitely shifted throughout the trip, and I'm glad we went there. I can say I enjoyed my time there, which I definitely went and I was like, God, I can't wait to get out of this country. And then by the time I was like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Some things to note if you go to Indonesia. Yeah, I mean, cash is still good to carry. Cash in general is good to carry around wherever you go, even in the U.S., especially in New York. I found out the hard way. But I'd say like the U.S. is probably the country we've seen with like the most amount of reliance on card versus cash.
Yeah.
But then Indonesian people as well, it appears they're heckling you. They'll be like, hey, mister, where are you from? But that's just how they're being friendly. At first, it's very off-putting because in the United States, you typically don't do that. If you do that to people, that's considered very rude.
And the taxi cab drivers do the exact same thing. So
yeah.
We are like, I do not want to talk to you. I don't know.
Right.
And our dude, James Lin or whatever, warned us. James Lin warned us.
In South Korea?
Yeah, he warned us about like kids in, what was it, South Korea?
Yeah,
Indonesia or something.
Yeah,
Manila.
So it's like, a lot of it is like, yeah, you have to in general, traveling around Asia and in Europe as well, you have to be careful about groups of kids because this is a common pickpocketing scheme where kids will surround you and they'll pick your pockets. And so like, that's just like, yeah, bad actors use kids like everywhere across the world. It's really sad. But you have to be a little bit mindful of it. But a lot of the times in Indonesia, people, a lot of it is also racism where, white fair skin is very valued. So people see, white people walking around and they start scaring and they start gawking. A lot of it as well is people, don't know much English, but the English they do know, they want to practice, they want to show off that they know English. So they want to start a conversation with you. We did not really start conversations with anybody. We did not really reciprocate. And if I go back to Indonesia now, knowing what I know, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, here's what it is. But it does feel very off-putting at first, just being, for lack of a better term, heckled on the street. Being like, hey, mister, where are you from? And it's because like in the U.S., if somebody asks you that, if somebody was like that, more often than not, like, it's not going to go well. Yeah. That interaction's not going to go well. But in Indonesia, I'd say more often than not, it's people who are genuinely curious, genuinely trying to be friendly. And that's just a little bit of a cultural difference that if you do go to Indonesia, be aware of.
Yeah, very friendly people outside of the taxi drivers. So great country, and we were then on to the next, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
Yep.
So
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for episode 6.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
All right, let's see this.